Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. So let's go straight to our second story today. Last week, a U.S. Army base in Texas became a heart-wrenching focal point for many ordinary Americans. The shootings at Fort Hood on November 5th shocked the entire nation. The gunman, now identified as Major Malik Nadal Hassan, also became the focus of national headlines. A possible link with Islamic extremists makes this tragedy even more complex. And it also leads to speculation on President Barack Obama's future strategy all the way over in Afghanistan.
On Tuesday, Fort Hood mourned its own. For the first time since winning the White House, President Barack Obama took on the healer-in-chief role at a time of national tragedy. It was time to offer comfort, if not answers.
It may be hard to comprehend the twisted logic that led to this tragedy, but this much we do know. No faith justifies these murderous and craven acts. No just and loving God looks upon them with favor. For what he has done, we know that the killer will be met with justice in this world and the next.
The massive Fort Hood base is home to about 50,000 troops. The biggest military base in the world is a prime point of deployment for U.S. operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. On November 5th, an Army psychiatrist opened fire with 2 handguns, killing 13 and wounding more than 30. It was the worst mass shooting ever on a military facility in the U.S.
There's an ongoing investigation, and I can't speak to the particulars of the investigation or to any motivation of Major Hassan's. And it was at once a gut-wrenching and an uplifting experience. Gut-wrenching because the suspect is one of our own, and it happened on one of our bases. And uplifting from the stories that I heard of our soldiers rushing to the aid of one another.
The shooter, Major Malik Nadal Hassan, is a 39-year-old of Palestinian descent, born in Virginia. He had served as a psychiatrist at the Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, D.C., treating badly wounded troops. He also received at least 3 medals during that period. In early September, Major Hassan began worshiping at the Islamic community of Greater Killeen Mosque. One of his friends, who also attended the mosque, said Hassan was upset and didn't want to go to Afghanistan. Hassan's relatives also confirmed that he wanted to leave the army to avoid being deployed to the war zone. He had faced harassment by fellow soldiers because of his Muslim background.
Apparently he became very disgruntled in the mission in Iraq and Afghanistan, voiced that to a lot of his colleagues, had a poor performance evaluation, was transferred to Fort Hood military base, and while there received a lot of advanced training in weapons and shooting classes.
As investigators continue to search for Hassan's motivation, something intriguing has been revealed. Intelligence agencies say they told authorities before the shooting spree that Hassan had emailed a Muslim cleric in Yemen who was sympathetic to Al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Awlaki. In this Northern Virginia mosque where Hassan occasionally prayed, the imam was employed from 2001 and 2002.
As we understand it, there was no relationship between Imam al-Awlaki and Major Hassan, not to our knowledge. But one of our imams said that he did have an occasion, along with the staff, to run into him.
However, Imam al-Awlaki praised Hassan on his personal website on Monday. Nadal Hassan is a hero. He is a man of conscience who could not bear living the contradiction of being a Muslim and serving in an army that is fighting against his own people. Even so, the U.S. authorities say Hassan is believed to have acted alone.
There are three reasons that make the Fort Hood tragedy important. The first is the Muslim background of Hassan and his possible connection to Islamic extremists. Second, those soldiers who died in the tragedy lost their life not in the battleground, but in the military base, a place supposed to be secure. Third, the issue of military deployment relates to Obama's anti-terrorism strategy.
The attack at Fort Hood has once again raised the issue of war-weary sentiment in the U.S. military. But many Americans hope it won't affect Obama's future decision on Afghanistan.
This is an individual shooting by itself. I think it's highly unlikely that one event like this by itself will compel President Obama to decide one way or another on Afghanistan.
For the president, it's given his opponents one more chance to criticize his anti-terrorism strategy. It was just 2 weeks ago that Obama stood at Dover Air Force Base honoring the remains of 18 troops killed in Afghanistan.
Obviously, it was a sobering reminder of the extraordinary sacrifices that our young men and women in uniform are engaging in every single day.
The U.S. has been engaged in 6 years of fighting in Iraq and nearly 8 years of war in Afghanistan. The stress on the military and on individual soldiers is extreme. Fort Hood personnel have accounted for more suicides than any other Army post since the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003. Through July this year, it was 75.
The conservatives from the Republicans criticized Obama's overall diplomatic strategy fiercely. The former Vice President Dick Cheney once said that Obama is deteriorating the U.S. security and making it less safe for the Americans. If Hassan's case proves to be linked to terrorism, the Republicans will use it to attack Obama's strategy in Afghanistan and press him to send more troops there.
Recent polling figures show Obama with a 50% approval rating, a significant drop from the day he took office. Analysts say some former presidents have gained support often through soaring rhetoric when the country experienced some of its most wrenching tragedies.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
When George W. Bush stood in the rubble of the World Trade Center shortly after the September 11th terrorism attacks, the image of a strong and compassionate leader helped send his approval ratings to 90%. In Obama's case, winning the war in Afghanistan and leading the country out of financial crises have equal weight. Both have a long way to go before any significant progress. Analysts say as the support of the war by American people is waning, Obama may consider a more limited engagement.
It's a recognition, in my opinion, that we've realized that we're not going to be able to solve the entire Afghanistan peace. We're not going to be able to take on the entire country.
The Fort Hood tragedy may become a constant reminder of the cost of war to ordinary people. Hassan, now at a Texas Army hospital and able to speak, will be tried in a military court. For the president, his decision on troop deployment to Afghanistan will be a hard one, not only for himself, but for thousands of American families.
Barack Obama once said that each and every day he thinks about the soldiers who are dying in both the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Analysts say that as a president of two inherited wars, it's important for him to stay connected with the consequences of policy decisions made in Washington. As the conflict in Afghanistan is only widening, it's become a major foreign policy challenge of his early leadership.